the understanding of holiness that I have experienced while a student here, and such was my initial introduction to Viterbo while pulling off that note from Earlsdor. Thank you.
Our next award is bestowed upon Dan Hale, the Spirit of Francis Award. A summer job as a camp counselor helped convince Dan of his calling when he realized how much he enjoyed working with children. Dan stated his love for children by explaining everything is new for them, and they bring the joy of life to everything they do. That's when he really began thinking about pediatrics. Combining his passions, Dan is now the medical director of a new pediatrics program in hospital medicine at the Floating Hospital for Children at Tufts Medical Center. Dan enjoys leading a program where there is grace-filled potential for change and is excited about what doctors can do to improve health care and the lives of others, especially those most vulnerable. Dan's passion is to help others goes beyond his career. Beginning his senior year at Viterbo, Dan traveled to Kenya and then again returned there during medical school to work at a rural hospital. When he came back from Kenya, he gave a presentation to the faculty as to what he had experienced. And at the end of your presentation, the room was quilted with silence, for we realized that we were in the presence of a great teacher. Dan is also a volunteer firefighter in Kitchener, Maine, and bridges his passion for pediatric health and firefighting by teaching fire safety. You are remarkable. He is currently implementing a American Academy of Pediatrics grant he received to install smoke detectors in the homes for families who have low incomes. Dan's mission in life continues to guide whatever he does by explaining, I'm just trying to do what Jesus did in serving others. It is with honor that we are honored by your presence and your good work and how you exemplify the spirit of St. Francis. Dan, please come forward for your award. Anybody else? Okay. Good job. Thanks. Congratulations. I'll have this back.
I do want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and I do want to speak specifically to the students and faculty, President Artman, and these fellow recipients. This is amazing to be among people like this. Of course, our friends and family who we need to support us, and the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration. I want to talk a little bit tonight about what it means to give back to people and how we can do that through peace, but also the foundation that you hear from all these recipients that we are starting on. As a pediatrician, I feel lucky that I have a job where every single day I get to be a part of people's lives, whether I like it or not. At the end of the day, I realize I've been invited into people's hearts and homes. And that's where I learned after a while that peace is a great thing to know and learn. It's not something you know where it came from, but once in a while you realize it's there. One time in our town, Tom talked about the volunteer fire department. We're in a small town, so when there's an accident, a lot of people get out and help. They leave their homes, and there was a man very badly burned, about 80% burned, and it was clear he wouldn't survive. And in the ambulance, I went in the back of the ambulance with him, and the paramedics did their work. They did the IV and all those kind of things. And I realized, even though I was a doctor, there wasn't a single thing I could do. All I did was stand on the bench next to him and put my hand on his shoulder and talk to him as he went to the hospital. And I realized afterwards, several years later, that sometimes it's okay to not be able to do a single thing, but just be peaceful with someone. A couple years after that, in the hospital, a baby was born and almost dead at the time and did fully pass away while his mother was unconscious for the emergency C-section, and none of us knew what to do. We tried for 50 minutes to save that baby's life. Sadly, that's my job to go to deliveries. Usually they're a wonderful thing, and no one knew what to do, and I just went over and held that baby while he died and just sat there in a rocking chair. And I realized that's all I could do, and sometimes it's all you can do. I do want to say, though, being a pediatrician is fun the most. I want to get those stories out of the way. We play games with the kids. We have video games. I know Mrs. Artman's a nurse, and we love picking on nurses. We call up to the nursing station, do prank calls, and tell them the local daycare has an outbreak of an illness, and all the kids have to come in for an IV, and they all panic and run around. Where does that foundation come that a lot of us have? Most of it comes, of course, from a family. I'm grateful my parents are here. Mom and Dad came up from Hartford, and my wife and that chopper girl back there, Anna. Anyone who does anything in this world, whether it's a profession or we're talking about the spirit of apprentice, you have to have a solid foundation of friends and family. And the students, it was nice to see the leaders invited to the ceremony. I remember coming when I was student government president to this ceremony at Viterbo and seeing the future, seeing what was going on with graduates. It'll make me sound old because you won't remember this until later, but Viterbo is giving you an amazing foundation. Just look around you. Professor Thibodeau, I didn't even take one of his classes till senior year, but I knew him from day one through church, and he's like a used car salesman. in a good way. He has his homelessness, you know, and I went outside with them with the fires and slept in a cardboard box, and I wasn't even in the class, but I wanted to experience that and see what was going on. The Franciscan sisters of perpetual adoration, we had our Franciscan friends where we would go over to the convent and have dinner on Sundays, and even yesterday on my tour I was able to stop at the perpetual adoration chapel, and it just moves you. You won't even realize till years later that living here for 4 years or however long you're here, that just goes right to your heart, and it'll be with you always. And your fellow students, you just look at the people here with you and your friends who are going through Viterbo with you, whether they're different majors, that they will show you things they're learning and you'll learn through them. So that foundation will be with you always. So I want to talk about peace, but I also want to talk about actually giving, like hearing Mike's story at the shelters he's been at, and everything that the whole group here is amazing that you can keep giving and working with God, just letting Him move your hands to do these things. On the day of the Boston Marathon bombings in April, I was in Boston at Tufts University, a few blocks from the bombing, and it was amazing. Once we started getting text and saw the TV, everyone who could went down to the ER to help, like no questions asked. Like people just care and they do what's right when the time comes. A good story for a baby. Very shortly after graduating from my residency training, I was alone at night at a hospital, and a very sick baby was born premature, and we had to put the baby on a ventilator, and the baby was very sick, wouldn't wake up, and I sat the father down. He had just come from Somalia. He had immigrated here, and I did tell him it was very dire circumstance, and the baby might not make it. I believe in honesty for these families, but the poverty he came from and the war and destruction he came from, it was surprising the baby even survived that long in his mind. But he looked at me straight in the eyes and he said, God will do what's right and He'll work through your hands. And that baby slowly but surely came back, came off the ventilator, and it was a small miracle in this world to see and hear that man say those kind of words. I like to learn from every patient and family I meet, and they can teach us a lot. This is a hard word to get. in a way it's very validating to hear when you're in the grind of daily medicine and helping people. Thought that Pat Kerrigan, who nominated me, and other people here thought of this is very moving and means a lot to me for this. The Franciscan values are hard to word, and how can you explain this for life? But the prayer of St. Francis, the beginning and the end of it does sum this up. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace, ending with, for it is in giving that we receive. Thank you very much for coming here, and peace be with you.
Priscilla, have you ever heard anybody describe me as a used car salesman? Thank you. Our next award is bestowed upon Wayne Oliver for his service to our community. Currently, the Executive Vice President of Community Banking Solutions at State Bank in La Crosse, Wayne has a master's in servant leadership from Viterbo University. Wayne is an active member in our community as a board member of Downtown Main Street, the La Crosse Community Theater, Rotary Works Foundation, and Rotary East. He is also a member of La Crescent Township Planning Commission, La Crescent Community Foundation, La Crescent Holka School District Technology Committee, and advisory boards for the Masters of Arts in Servant Leadership and Nonprofit Certificate Leadership Development at Viterbo University and La Crosse County Historical Society. Rosa Parks' husband said this about his wife. He said, "You know, my wife ate more potluck suppers than she ever did at home." Well, Wayne has served all of us selflessly in our communities. You read that list and think of the number of people in our community have benefited by his service and the number of nights that you've had to give up supper with your family to serve us. What humility and grace. Currently, Wayne and others are working to form a community development corporation to help facilitate healthy communities for the future of La Crosse neighborhoods. Last week, I was talking to a person who said to me, "We need more board members like Wayne Oliver." He is the servant of servants. Wayne remains involved in Viterbo's servant leadership program, and he feels he's made which he feels has made a positive impact on his both professional and personal life. "It's a way of life," he said. "I am proud to have gone through the program, and it has been our joy, Wayne, to ruin your life." Thank you for serving so well. With humility and joy, this afternoon he was down leading the chili cook-off that benefits so many. It is a privilege to present to you the 2013 Community Service Award. Please acknowledge Wayne Oliver.
First thing I have to do is Priscilla, stand up. Would you please, Priscilla? Happy anniversary. You know, it really is truly an honor to be recognized by the Viterbo community. I'm honored to have family and friends here tonight to share this with me. My mother, Evelyn, my daughter, Elise, my wife, Sandy. Well, she couldn't be here tonight because she's off in Boston serving her mother. My daughter, Lauren, is also going to school just north of Boston. She's a senior out there at Gordon College. And I got an email from her last week. "Dad, you know, I'm really, really excited." It was their alumni weekend at Gordon last week. And she received their Servant Leader Award as a student. And it's just like, what a legacy. Thank you all. One other example of servanthood, and we've heard a little bit from Dan, particularly about the medical field. My daughter works at Gunderson. My wife works at what do they call it now? I still call it Franciscan Skemp across them. But they both work in areas where a lot of times people aren't getting the best of news. And you know what? They do it with humility and service, and they do it with a smile to make other people happy in the toughest of times. So to me, that's great service. So thank you, Elise. For anyone to serve within a community, you need the support system to enable you to be a servant. My support system has been and continues to be my family, my friends, my faith community, my coworkers. They're all there for me when I'm doing all of these things in the community. And for that, I am truly grateful. Thank you. You know, several months ago, Tom and I were working at Place of Grace, cleaning up the kitchen. And he asked me at that time probably one of the most perplexing questions that I've ever been asked. Why did you become a servant? What happened in your life? And he probably thought I never thought I was even going to think about that. So that's been about a year, Tom. I've been thinking about that, and it was revealed, the answer was revealed to me last week. It really, really was. My family has always valued lifelong learning. Not always the formal kind that you receive in something like Viterbo or college or somewhere else, but reading, talking, discussing things. And that very foundation and desire to learn, I believe, is why I do what I do, where I do it, when I do it, how I do it. And that is because you have to be very, very intentional about putting yourself out in places to learn. And I have been, so as much as I've ever done for any organization or will do the rest of my life, I have received so much more from those experiences in all of the groups I've served. So Tom, that's the answer. That's why I do it, and that's why I did. But probably one of the biggest lessons I've ever learned in my life also came from Place of Grace. And it was 2-3 years ago. And Tom's never heard this story. You know, I didn't realize Michael I hadn't really met Michael or talked to him until yesterday. We were sitting in President Artman's office having lunch and getting to know each other a little bit. But thank you for your work at Place